Well, I know that that is your view, but I think what is interesting is your authority for stating it. I'm not suggesting that you don't have the right to promulgate your own point of view. I'm simply suggesting that it is rather unusual to see you, as you describe your philosophy, express a sense of shock that moral exegetes during the preceding 2,000 years should have had the nerve to disagree with you. It is, I think, important for the record to establish that you are seeking, in effect, to annul the traditional code about what is proper sexual behavior. But let me ask you this.
I'm suggesting that it be re-examined. You suggested that two or three times, or stated to it.
Yeah.
It's not true that I'm, by any sense, because the end that I'm seeking is really very similar. I think that we are more apt to have a truly monogamous society if we do more realistically come to grips with some of these problems. I think that we've avoided the problems with some of these old rules that have simply been there and ignored much of the time.
Well, but do you, as a matter of fact, tend to take the position in which you would not be unique, that any moral laws that don't, in fact, reflect human behavior are themselves philosophically suspect? That is to say, I know that, for instance, you cite Kinsey with extraordinary enthusiasm, as though he had, in fact, liberated your thinking on the matter. And you say, well, look, here Kinsey observes that the typical human male and the typical human female are sexually promiscuous, and under the circumstances, we ought to reverse our laws and our public attitudes in order to make permissible and perhaps even admirable that which, in fact, happens. Are you a positivist in this sense?
I think that only becomes part of it. I don't think that it follows per se that simply because a thing is done, even done by a majority of people, that it is necessarily the best and moral thing. But I think that when you are involved with or are concerned with a natural physical drive and something as basic to the nature of man as sex is, that when you do get scientific evidence, as Kinsey has supplied, that indicates the great disparity. This, to me, is the value of Kinsey, indicated for the first time statistically the great disparity that existed between our professed beliefs and the actual actions of society. I don't think it follows, therefore, per se, that what has been revealed as what is occurring is necessarily moral, but as one good reason for questioning some of the old morality. I think that the reasons are a good deal deeper than that. The real reasons are that many of these moral views are not good for people, that good, just, humane ends do not come from these old traditions. And I think that premarital sex, since that's what we're talking about here at the moment, premarital sex can be moral or immoral, just as marital sex can.
Well, now, but what qualifies you to advance this position? It is, of course, a position which happens to be, again, highly congruent with a highly saleable philosophy. Your magazine has a lot of readers and is considered sort of exciting in virtue of its sexual iconoclasm. But it does seem to me that the background of people who have taken it on themselves to reverse ancient attitudes about very sacred matters has been one of a lifetime of study and a certain amount of moral agony given over to these questions. But Playboy all of a sudden simply announces that thanks in part to it, we simply have to repeal these ancient attitudes. And I have seen in your own Playboy philosophy no other justification for it than that people ought not to be afflicted with a tormented conscience simply because they give way to their sexual libidos, irrespective of the consequences. Now, that is really, in effect, your position, i.e., isn't it?
No, not at all.
It's sort of a hedonistic utilitarianism on advanced
Well,
John
I've
Stuart
been
Mill.
the philosophy, this editorial series that we've been involved in, has been, if it's been criticized for one single thing, it has been its verbosity, and much of that has been due to the fact that we've quoted at great length a great many sources. I think that scientific, religious, practical and philosophical, related to these questions. It seems to me that what you're really saying is, what right have I to express what are admittedly only my own particular evaluations of the situation? And it seems to me that that's what a free society is all about.
No, I recognize you're right, and I specifically conceded it a moment ago under the Constitution of the United States. Say anything you want at all. What I'm here to question is your credentials as a serious moral teacher, and it seems to me, though, that the flavor of your protracted sermon in Playboy is simply to speak about those who disagree with you as old, crotchety Puritans who unfortunately don't share your sense of enlightenment. In connection with what you said, and I think it bears very, very directly on your point, you say that the Kinsey report revealed a considerable disparity between what actually goes on and what people suppose goes on. Why do you say that? That is to say, to whom do you suppose that the Kinsey report came as a great surprise? Can you imagine for instance, a Catholic confessor who would have been surprised by the Kinsey report?
No,
why did Christ refer to his disposition to forgive a sinner 70 times 7 times unless he anticipated the possibility of 490 sins?
I think it came as a great surprise to the general public. No, I don't think it came as a surprise to people who are deeply involved in this kind of problem, whether on the religious side or on the social or psychological side. But for the general public, the revelations in the report, I think, were very much an eye-opener. But more than that, they brought them out into the public print. And this, again, I think, is where Playboy is, and the philosophy are